Hey, D here, and today we will be going over my ultimate guide for M plus keys for Guardian Druid. This will be talking all about bear tanks and how to do them, what their cooldowns, defensives, utilities are, what the talents look like, and hero talents. So first off, we're going to talk about the skill floor and ceiling. If you're not new to WoW, you've probably heard that Guardian Druids are the easiest tank to pick up, and I would agree with this. They have very few buttons that they actively need to push to stay alive in most forms of content, and they are rather straightforward. With that being said, though, there is a rather high skill ceiling. There are a lot of different tricks that you can do with Bear to perform at the same level as the upper classes of other specs. And we won't get too much into those, but that may be a future video. Alright, first off, we're going to talk about our offensive cooldowns. We will start off with Heart of the Wild. This is an optional talent that we take because of the Elun's Chosen hero talents, focusing on arcane damage. Heart of the Wild, what we use it for is the balance spec of the damage increase of our Moonfire is being increased by 20% for an entire 45 seconds. Now, this is a 5-minute cooldown, but that 20% can help a lot in getting your damage up for specific pools that you may need help with. Next up, we've got our main cooldown, and these other three offensive cooldowns that we're going to talk about are also they're hybrid cooldowns because they are offensive, but they're also defensive. So, Incarn, that's our main cooldown. It's a standard 3-minute cooldown that can be reduced by spending rage. So you get more of a like anywhere from a minute and a half cooldown up to like a 2-minute 15-second cooldown, depending on how much rage you're spending and how quickly you're pulling. Um, but it gives you basically more damage by causing your Mangle, which is our single target filler spell, to hit 3 targets instead of 1. It also increases our maximum health by 30%. And if you're taking the talents for it, then it also reduces the cooldown of Frenzied Regeneration by 100% and the cost of Iron Fur by 50%, which this basically just means that it refunds both stacks of your Frenzied Regen and makes it easier to stack Iron Furs. It also reduces the rage cost of your Mauls or Raises, which is our offensive spenders. Next up, we've got Lunar Beam. This calls down a beam at your feet. This beam does not move once you've placed it. It increases your mastery, which your mastery is going to increase your max health and healing received, as well as increase your attack power. So that is a good boost that will help you stay alive and do damage. It also just does damage by itself and heals you as you're standing in it over the 11 seconds that it lasts. Next up is Rage of the Sleeper. This will give you a damage reduction of 20%. It increases your damage done by 15% and grants you Leech at 20%. While also reflecting a minimal amount of damage back at the people attacking you. And that's all for our offensive cooldowns. Like I said, those last three, Incarn, Lunar Beam, and Rage of the Sleeper, are all mixtures of offensive and defensive cooldowns. So while you may want to slam all three of them at the same time because your damage will shoot up and it'll look great. You have to remember that while they are offensive, they're also those defensive cooldowns, and you may need them in your rotation further on. So if you can slam all three, go ahead. But if you're finding that you have issues with your defensive cooldowns later on, and that you have gaps in them, then you're going to want to not put them all together. With that being said, Lunar Beam is a shorter cooldown than 1 minute with the Elun's Chosen hero talents, which is what we are going to be taking in keys. As every time you do an arcane ability, which is Thrash and Moonfire, it reduces the cooldown of Lunar Beam. So they're usually anywhere between like 20 to 40 seconds of cooldown rather than a minute, depending on how much you're pooling and how often you use your arcane abilities. Alright, so that's all for our offensives. And now our pure defensives are starting with Barkskin. This is basically our bread and butter of what we're going to push most of the time. It's our shortest defensive cooldown. It basically has a DR of 30% and increases your healing by 20%. This also, if you're taking Brambles as a talent, which you most likely are, this also increases the damage that your Bramble's done while Barkskin is active. It also lasts 12 seconds, which is pretty long, so it's a great short-term cooldown to use. And then next up, we'll go with our DRs. We've got Survival Instincts. This is our big hit tank buster negator, basically. And this reduces all damage you take by 60% for 6 seconds. It does have a 3-minute cooldown. Right now, I'm taking the talent to get 2 charges of Survival Instincts, but you're not always going to do that, and you don't have to do that now. Basically, Survival Instincts is going to be one of the defensives that you're kind of holding on to for a gap in your rotation. And you'll use it whenever you don't have anything else. It's a last resort. Alright, our next defensive is going to be a heal, which is Frenzied Regen. This is our main source of healing, or main source of self-healing, active self-healing. And this says that it heals you for 20% health over 3 seconds and increases your health healing received. But it actually, we have a talent that increases how much healing it does based on how much health we have. So the lower health we are, the more healing it does. So it does a lot more than just 20%. But this is our main self-heal. It's on the global cooldown, which isn't fantastic. And you get 2 charges of this. This is also what's refunded when you use Incarn, so you should be using your Frenzied Regens if you need them before Incarn, popping Incarn, and you'll get 2 more stacks of Frenzied Regen. Alright, next up we've got another kind of like oh crap heal called Renewal. It just instantly heals you for 30% of your max health. It's a 1.5 minute cooldown. It's just something to push if you don't have Frenzied Regen available, or if you are low on health and need your health bar to go up right then to survive the next hit. And then along with that, we've also got Regrowth. This is not something that you would typically use in bear form, but I like to take the talent Dream of Cenarius, which periodically lets you regrowth in bear form. You'll get a buff to be able to use it, and that's how you'll know you can use it. You can use it on yourself or on any of your party members if that's what you choose to do. So, defensive rotation would look something like we'll we'll talk about a boss in a key specifically. On pool, I would say you would use Incarn and Lunar Beam. That'll give you 30 seconds of Incarn, and Lunar Beam gives you the extra damage and mastery to throw everything at it right then. Um, at the end of Incarn, that 30 seconds, your Lunar Beam is likely to be back up soon, within either already back up or up within the next few seconds. And so you can use Lunar Beam again to gain that mastery and healing, but you'll probably likely want to use Bark Skin as well if there's a big tank buster. And then after that, you'll basically always want to be using Lunar Beam on cooldown, and you'll want to use Rage of the Sleeper next. And after that, hopefully your Bark Skin's back up. If not, you use Survival Instincts. It's like that. You want to use the shortest cooldown first always, because then it'll be back up faster. Um, and one thing that we didn't really talk about yet for defensives is going to be Iron Fur. This is your basically passive defensive. Um, this is what you're going to spend most of your rage on at the moment, or honestly, this is what you spend almost all of your rage on. This gives you stacking armor all the way up to the cap of 85% DR for physical damage. We are also right now taking Thorns of Iron, which means that every time you apply Iron Fur to yourself, it shoots off damage equal to 20% of your armor and hits everyone within 12 yards. It does reduce the damage after 4 stacks, which you won't have too much unless you're in Incarn. Alright, and I believe that's it for regrowth right now. Druid utility is actually a lot. It's not as much as you would think for like Vengeance Demon Hunter, as they have a lot of controlling abilities, but Druid has a lot of other kind of utilities. First off, we've got Incapacitating Roar. This is a soft CC, AoE CC, that will basically just interrupt a cast for a second. It incapacitates the enemies, but any damage breaks that, so in a key you'll instantly be broken. But it's a good way to stop a cast if you don't have a kick ready for it. Next up, we've got Remove Corruption. This is a dispel that can hit curse and poison effects. This is great to have on a tank because there are many things that you can dispel off of yourself this season, and it is a talent node that we take anyway. Alright, next up we've got a little bit more of a soft CC. This is Ursol's Vortex. This you place on the ground, and when enemies try to leave it for the first time, they get pulled back to the center of the vortex. I like to use this in conjunction with Typhoon, which blasts enemies in whatever way you're pointing at. And I will put Vortex down and then Typhoon them. That way the enemies get blasted out to the edge of Vortex, hit that edge, and then get pulled back into the center of the Vortex. That way they're still grouped up for our DPS. Alright. And then right next to that we've got Stampeding Roar. This is a movement speed increase. It'll hit everyone in your party or raid. It's just a great way to speed up some of the dungeons, especially when you're indoors. It's only got a minute cooldown, so it's very nice. Then we've got Soothe. This is an enraged spell. It usually helps you or your party take less damage, or I mean, that's basically what it does. I don't know of too many uses that it has in this season, but I'm sure that there will be something. Following that, we've got Prowl, which is stealth for druids. This means that we never have to have a invis pot, because we can just stealth for free. Druid stealth isn't as strong as an invis pot or something like a rogue or mage invis, but most of the time it fits perfectly, and that's all you need. With that, we've also got Revive. This just allows us to resurrect dead party members out of combat. It's great for if you're the only one alive, or healer's dead and none of your DPS have it. We've also got Rebirth, which is a combat resurrection, which means that we can resurrect someone while we're in combat. This is great in keys where maybe your healer dies and you need them to finish out that pack or on the boss. Um, or just if you have a big pool and one of your DPS dies and you're far from the respawn point and you need their damage then and there. We've also got Mark of the Wild. This is by far the best raid buff for keys. This gives you and your party 3% versatility, and versatility gives you damage reduction as well as attack power or damage done. And so this gives you 3% verse, which equals out to roughly, I believe that's 3% damage and healing done, and then roughly about 1.5% damage taken reduction. And so that is great for all kinds of keys. Alright, now let's talk about the optional talents that you can do or take. First off, Dream of Snaris is optional. You don't need it. You can put it anywhere else. You can have Mangle, which deals an extra 20% against bleeding damage, which is your Thrash. You can put it in Vicious Cycle, which increases the damage of your Maul or Raise every time you Mangle, and your Mangle every time you Maul or Raise. You could also keep Dream of Cenarius, take Mangle, or drop Survival Instincts, take Survival of the Fittest, drop Layered Main, and get After the Wildfire. There's so many different things that you can change up in this area. But the bottom area, we're kind of locked in. You can get rid of Ursock's Guidance here and take Raise if you really want to, but it's not needed in keys. So that's really, it'll do a little bit more damage with Raise, and if you do that, then you can spread your Tooth and Claw proc, which is basically a 12% DR for you. If you apply that with Raise, it gives a debuff to the enemies and they deal 12% less damage to you. But I like Ursock's Guidance better because it allows you to spend Rage and reduce the cooldown of your Incarn. Alright, so that's really all about Bear. There are, a couple of other abilities that we could get into, but it's not much. An easy rotational guide is something like as you pull up to the pack to start fighting them, I would suggest that you do something like Wild Charge at them in bear form. This charges you to the enemy and roots them there. That just helps you get into the pack faster. And as you're going in there, you can Thrash, which will hit everyone, and put the bleed on there to increase your threat generation. And once you're in there, you're going to want to start stacking Iron Furs. You're going to want to apply Moonfire to as many people as you can, and start using your Mangle to generate Rage. And at that point, that's when you Incarn Lunar Beam and start your offensive rotations. If you're in an AoE pack, you continue to Thrash and Mangle as it comes up. You Moonfire in any filler time that you don't have anything else to do, meaning Mangle or Thrash is down. and dump all your rage into Iron Fur. That was a quick rotational tip. Um, but yeah, I I enjoy playing Bear. I think it's decently simple to play, and it lets me call abilities for my team as we're doing keys, which makes it a lot easier for me to tank and call those abilities. Verse buff in Mark of the Wild is great for me and my team. It was very easy to get into, so me being someone who doesn't tank every season, it's nice and easy to come to this tune, be able to tank, and then leave it the next season. Well, that's all I have. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have any cool tips or tricks about Bear, or if you need anything else explained. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe.